Are there things you still regret today? Things that could have changed if you just acted on them in the moment? If you just didn't hesitate? Hello. My name is Connor Stengenbush, and I am going to be retelling a somewhat traumatic experience that happened many years ago involving dangerous waters, a three-legged dog, and a very eager mother willing to do anything to save that dog. And me, who was frozen on the side, paralyzed with fear, worrying about what would happen next. But the more I reflect on this story in recent times, the more I gain a different outlook on life and moving forward to not regret doing the things that you've done, to listen to yourself and act in the moment, because a lot of times you won't get that second chance. Because the truth is, you can't be prepared for everything. And this all starts in the year 2012, when I was just 9 years old. Duluth had a very sporadic and very sudden flash flood that has enveloped a lot of the roads and the streets near London roads, and many of the rivers neighboring Lake Superior were vastly overwhelmed by the profound waves and the streams from this flood. And this was the first time something like this has happened in years, and still to this day, it is very catastrophic of what this flood had done during its time, and we haven't experienced anything like that since. At the time, I had been living with my mother, my father, and my two older brothers all together around Condon Park Elementary or middle school. We weren't too far away from there at the moment. And being the responsible family that we were, we decided to get some action on this flood and kind of like see what's been going around, because where we were, there hadn't been a lot going around except for maybe like a backed up sewage system in our basement, but that was much later down the line after this whole event started to unfold around us. So we get our rain jackets, we get everything prepared, we bring two of our dogs, one of which was born with a deformed leg which had to be amputated, making him our three-legged dog named Gabriel. And he was just so outgoing with his energy. He was young and he just loved to be outdoors constantly and run and explore, despite what he did or what he looked like and what he was capable of doing. But it didn't stop him. He still kept going despite what he had missing from him. Our journey delved into the Condon Creek, which is right next to the school that I used to go to. And before, there was a pretty steep trail going down into this creek. And it was a very calm stream. There were maybe like a few moments where like the water would just fall down some rocks, but it was never super rageful, if I had to describe it. But this day we weren't very well prepared for in the end, because what we saw when we went down this trail and into the creek was unlike anything I had ever seen in my life prior to this. And it was a wrath and wave of just waves and streams flowing down the creek and just covering every single trail that was in the area, except for a few key bridges and stairways that we were able to traverse across as we explored through the creek. We were safe for the moment, as we mainly used these bridges to travel across. However, there is at one point where we kind of came up to a roadblock, and that was that the bottom of the stairway from one of these bridges was completely submerged in the flooded waters, and we really had no good way to move past it We even, with precautions, I will say, tried to stick our boots to see if we could touch the surface in the bottom. We couldn't feel a thing. And we were all there wondering, what is it that we're supposed to do at this point? Before we could even process what we were supposed to do, that same three-legged dog, Gabriel, decided it was then the best opportunity to jump in the river, the raging, flooded river down the creek, and is completely swallowed by the stream, and the intense waves are pulling him back and down the way we just came from. And how it all happened in a flash, as not only did he was swept up, but my mother went in willingly to go after him. And we were all standing there as a family, just like, what is going on? Because one moment, both the dog and our mom are just taken by this. And then we see her on the side of the cliff, holding on to a fallen branch while holding on to Gabriel. And we had to send in another person to try and retrieve her. We had strangers coming in, trying to swoop in and pick her up. And eventually, the current got so tight, or so strong, that it swept Gabriel away from my mother's grip as she was pulled back to safety. And we had no idea where he could have went until we eventually found him right on the side of the shore, where he was completely fine. And it was a scary experience because we didn't know what was going to happen to him. We didn't know what was going to happen to my mother, but she made that choice right away without a moment of hesitation. And I've learned that a lot of things can happen in a very little short time, whether you're ready for that or not. And when you're given that tough choice in that tough scenario, are you either going to freeze or stand where you are and worry about what will happen? Or are you going to jump in that river and try and save yourself from the feeling of regret if you hadn't? Because like I said, not everything can be prepared for. And most of the time, you have to go with your gut feeling and your instincts and not regret a thing afterwards.